Hello everyone. With the release of Persona 3 Reload, everyone's got that P3 brain rot. I mean, I haven't uploaded a proper video since it came out. In fact, the last video I uploaded for this channel was 3 minutes long, and is, at the time of this video, my fastest growing upload. Thanks by the way, I really appreciate it. Anyway, since P3 is back in the spotlight again, I wanted to make a proper video about its remake, but I also want to educate people in a way that might be interesting. So, this will be the start of a brand new series called Who/What Are They? In this series, I will explain important personas from the franchise. This includes references to real-life lore, design aspects, and how/if they represent their own story and journey. With that said, I thought a good place to kick off the series would be to take a look at Orpheus, Makoto Yuki's initial persona. Let's explore his intricate lore, design, and role. One thing I should know for this part of the video, there are a few differences as to how certain events happened. For example, the very first thing I'll bring up is Orpheus' father, and who that is somewhat debated. The events all lead to the same thing though, but I figured I should make that clear now before I may or may not get a comment saying I'm incorrect about something specific. Though if I am wrong about something, then I'll make sure to acknowledge it.
Orpheus!
Anyways, let's start with Orpheus' lore. His lore originates from Greek mythology, one of my favorite subjects ever by the way. But who was he? Well, Orpheus was the son of a Thracian king named Oeagrus and Calliope, a muse. There are other sources that say he was the son of Apollo and Calliope, and this is my favorite one to think about. I'll explain later. Regardless, Apollo would later give Orpheus a beautiful lyre that he would quickly master. One day, while playing in the woods, he would meet a wood nymph named Eurydice. It was essentially love at first sight. Eurydice was attracted by Orpheus' music, and Orpheus was lured in by her beauty. Soon after this, they were married, and the wedding was blessed by Hymenaeus, the god of marriage. However, he would warn the newlyweds that their marriage wouldn't last forever. Aristaeus, the god of beekeeping, would notice Eurydice's beauty and wanted to get Orpheus out of the picture. Hiding in nearby bushes as they walked through a forest, he jumped out and attempted to kill Orpheus, but failed. The couple ran away from Aristaeus, but he gave chase. Unfortunately, Eurydice would soon die from a venomous snake bite after stepping on one trying to run away from Aristaeus. After her death, Orpheus fell into a deep state of depression. He no longer cared about life, as without Eurydice it had no meaning. She was his answer to life, and she was who he lived for. And so, armed with his lyre, he descended into the underworld, also known as Tartarus. Using his incredible skill of lyre and voice, he got past the many threats of Tartarus, even getting past Cerberus. At long last, he made it to Hades and Persephone, the king and queen of the underworld. With all his pain, his sadness, and his love, he sang for the two gods as he played his lyre. This performance moved Hades to tears and allowed Orpheus the opportunity to take Eurydice back to the living world. There was a catch though. During the ascent, Orpheus must not look back at Eurydice while both of them are in his realm. Orpheus can only look at Eurydice once they're both on the surface. If he broke this rule, Eurydice would be forever stuck in the underworld. Orpheus' plan had worked. He managed to win the fear from Hades, and he had the chance to be with the love of his life forever and after. As they escaped from the underworld and finally hit the surface, the light of the sun shone upon Orpheus. He was happy, and they made it. And so he turned around, only to realize that Eurydice had not made it out of the underworld when he did. He witnessed her vanish right before his eyes. He was so close. His life, once more, disappeared. He fell back into his depression, even worse than before. Because of this, he denounced all gods except for Apollo. Not only that, but he rejected any female company that tried to get close. This would ultimately be the reason why he meets his demise. Dionysus' Maenads would not only hate Orpheus for his rejection of other gods, but also because he refused their advances. Orpheus would not fight back as they attacked him, and began tearing him apart. His head and lyre were the only things that were left. The head and lyre floated down the river Hebros, and his head would continue to sing sad songs. Eventually, it was buried on the island of Lesbos, while his lyre was turned into a constellation in the sky. And that was the tale of Orpheus, the master of strings. A sad tale about someone finding the answer to their life, losing that answer, getting a chance to get it back before having it disappear right before their eyes. With that said, let's examine its Persona 3 design and see if it's true to the tale.
It's so good to see you again. You lost consciousness after awakening to your power. Ooh, I see that it was Orpheus who heeded your call. Very interesting.
Orpheus' design is handled pretty well, with a good amount of details you may not notice at first glance. A lot of things can catch your eye the first time you play the game, but I think the most noticeable feature is the head. The head is the only part of Orpheus that isn't metallic in any way compared to the rest of his body. This references how the head was the only part of his body that was left. Around Orpheus' head is a red scarf, which could signify a bloody aftermath. Not only that, but Orpheus himself resembles Makoto, and though I can't exactly say why he shares a similar head to the protagonist, personas are meant to be a user's other self. The limbs of Orpheus look loose and could fall out at any moment. When thinking about how he was torn apart, this makes sense. His arms and legs being loosely connected in such a way, in my opinion, is a detail that was purposely given to Orpheus. A couple more observations we can see is what appears to be a speaker within Orpheus' stomach area. Of course, this references his affinity with music, alongside his signature lyre. Makoto also has a type of music as well, as he's always seen wearing headphones, listening to music whenever he can. Again, another similarity between the protagonist and his initial persona. Here's one final thing that I'll need to explain in summarization. For those of you unaware, the Persona series uses a series of tarot cards called Arcana to represent personas and how they relate to a specific arcana. Each arcana represents someone's understanding of themselves and their place in the world. The arcana used to represent Orpheus is the Fool Arcana. The Fool Arcana represents the beginning of a journey to self-discovery. It represents a few more things too besides that, such as innocence and optimism. During this journey, your personality will begin to take shape as you start out as a blank canvas for the world to shape you into who you are. I think this represents Orpheus well, as after meeting Eurydice, it seems he was optimistic and innocent about his new life with her. She helped realize that his journey through life was leading up to meet her. However, when she was taken away from him, his innocence disappeared, and this is where we lead into the reverse Fool Arcana. When an arcana is reversed, this means that they turn into the opposite of who they were. Thus, Orpheus became depressed and reckless, which led him into the underworld. Orpheus will represent living in the moment at the end of his journey out of Tartarus, when he turned around to look at Eurydice. If he had planned to escape out of there, he would have taken extra steps out of the underworld to make sure he could look at his lover. This reckless action will then forever haunt Orpheus for the rest of his life. I think both sides of the Fool Arcana represents Orpheus amazingly. The overall design of Orpheus in Persona 3 was well crafted and handled with care, but does any of what we're talking about so far transfer into the gameplay? Well, let's find out.
So. I am thou. Thou art I. From the sea of thy soul I come. I am Orpheus, master of strings.
Okay, so from here on out, if you're watching this for fun, there will be a major spoiler warning right here. I will not be holding back at all, so if you want to play Persona 3 or watch a playthrough or whatever, then I highly recommend clicking off this video. I do not want to spoil the story of an amazing game. so I'll wait a few seconds before I continue. Okay, so let's get into the gameplay elements of Persona 3 and how well Orpheus is tied into the gameplay itself. Well, to start, remember when I said that Orpheus' father/deity of choice was Apollo? Well, Apollo himself was the sun god, and to represent this, Orpheus was given fighter skills. These are the only offensive magic skills he could learn in the game. Not only that, but do you also remember when I said that I liked the idea of Apollo being Orpheus' father? Well, here's the reason. In Persona 2, the protagonist Tatsuya Suo's ultimate persona is Apollo, and after certain events of innocent sin, Tatsuya will help save the world of eternal punishment, because the world of innocent sin was destroyed. Thanks to its help, Tatsuya and the other characters in Eternal Punishment were able to secure a world for future games to take place. Without his efforts, there will be no Persona 3, 4, or 5. So going from Tatsuya's ultimate persona Apollo to Makoto's initial persona Orpheus felt like something that happened on purpose. This feels as though Apollo is passing the torch onto Orpheus, and this is why I prefer Apollo being the father of Orpheus. In the beginning of the game when Makoto first summons Orpheus, the cutscene will show Orpheus convulsing as something emerges from within him, tearing his body apart. Once again, a reference to how Orpheus met his death. After this though, Makoto and his friends will begin a journey to ascend the top of a structure called Tartarus. This story element reflects Orpheus' journey into and from within Tartarus. One more thing of note before we discuss more important story elements is Makoto's own tragedy. Prior to the game, he lost his parents, and as such, he himself fell into a deep state of depression that haunted him since he was a child. Much like Orpheus, he lost his loved ones right before his eyes. Makoto and his friends will eventually reach the top of Tartarus and fight off against Nyx to save the world from annihilation. However, Nyx cannot be defeated, and so after the fight, Makoto sacrificed himself to save the world and the people he loved. Although his sacrifice isn't immediately apparent, he only lived for one more month. At the end of his life, his friends regained their memories and quickly headed to the rooftop of the school that they promised to meet up after the Battle of Nyx. Unfortunately, Makoto will pass away right before they can reunite with him. Can you see a similarity here? Makoto represents Eurydice in this moment, and his friend Orpheus. As tragic and as heartbreaking as this was, it was very, very well played. In the afterstory of Persona 3, his friends will find out how Makoto died, and what he did to prevent Nyx from destroying the world, and that was to become the Great Seal.
So this is the miracle he performed.
His soul became the reason why Nyx wasn't awakened. Just like how Orpheus' line was immortalized after death, Makoto's soul became a statue that prevented Nyx from emerging. So, how well was Orpheus implemented into the gameplay of Persona 3? Do I even need to give you an opinion on that? It was amazing! Thinking about it though, it seems that Orpheus was meant to look like Makoto because how similar their stories would become. Now there is something else I should mention, and that's the female protagonist of the PSP port. Her name is Kotone Shiomi, or FemC as the fandom likes to call her. Kotone is a female counterpart of Makoto that you can choose to play as at the beginning of the PSP port. Just like him, her initial persona is Orpheus, and it has some design alterations as seen here. Now, while I have nothing negative to say about Kotone or the port itself, if her Orpheus is supposed to be female or at least represent Kotone a bit better, why not have it be Eurydice? I mean, I think it would still make sense. Kotone and Eurydice trying to ascend Tartarus, and at the very end, dying before they can reunite with their friends? That's just my opinion though, and there's probably a good reason why they didn't. But hey, we're all Kotone enjoyers here, so it's okay. Well, it seems we have reached the end of our own journey here. Orpheus was a tragic character that lost love of his life after becoming so close to being with her again. He went through literal hell to get her back, and seemingly has nothing to show for it. However, just like Makoto and Kotone, he was forever immortalized but as a constellation in the sky. His journey, just like our protagonist, will not be forgotten. Okay, alright, you have no idea how much trouble I went through to record this video. I had to reread the script 4 times because I was trying new audio setups. But anyway, as mentioned in the beginning of this video, I intend this to be a new series, one separate from sci-fi. I'm going to structure these future videos the same way for each important persona, but we're starting off in P3 of course. The next persona I'll cover will be Io, so make sure you stick around for that. If you have any comments, questions, or criticism about what I've covered or how I presented it, please leave a comment below. Until then, have a good day or night.